Okay, we're back. We're live. 4 o'clock rock. 4 o'clock on Tuesday with Tracy Wiltgen. Wiltgen. Okay. And she is the executive director of, the Mediation Center of the Pacific. And she is a lawyer. And we found her by Googling things like Kupuna. And presto, there she is. And this is so in line with our show today, which is Aging with Grace.
Excellent.
Because I don't think people really understand this. And I'm so happy you're here.
And I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. We're calling this Kupuna in Controversy. Okay, let me give you my introduction of the subject. Okay. It may surprise you, but Kupuna get into arguments too. They get into arguments among themselves, with their children, and the siblings in that generation get into arguments about the Kupuna, and it's stressful being a Kupuna, and it's stressful being involved in transitional events of every kind. And being a Kupuna, sometimes involves transitional events, and we know that. So what do you do? This is difficult, and I was telling Tracy that a good friend of mine went to law school, and he became, because of his family, he became the CEO of a large public company early in his life, which fell apart. And then after that, went to practice, what do we call it, generational therapy law. And he handled, big companies where the generations were not in agreement. Mm-hmm. And he had on his staff a psychiatrist, which I always thought was amazing. And he's had a whole career of that. His whole life, he's been doing that everywhere in the world. And it makes me sensitive to the idea that the generations do not get along with each other sometimes, and sometimes those arguments are huge and expensive and involve high stakes. Mm-hmm. And how did you get into this anyway, Tracy?
Okay, well, I've been with the Mediation Center of the Pacific for many years, and we handle all types of issues. But we would receive calls from families, so sometimes it would be siblings in conflict over the care of mom and dad, or sometimes, as you say, it would be mom or dad in conflict with their adult children about, my kids think that they want to tell me to move into a home and I don't want to, or my kids want to move in with me, which is fine, but I feel like they're taking advantage of me. And all the issues that arise, like you said, when you have families, when you have different generations. So while we offered mediation, we said, we have a growing aging population. There's a growing incidence of Alzheimer's, dementia, which makes
more complicated
way more complicated. So we developed the Kupuna Pono program about 2.5 years ago to address these issues and help families and help our Kupuna be able to address some of the conflicts that you mentioned.
Yeah, because there's a possibility of real tragedy here. Being alienated from your brothers and sisters, being alienated from your parents being angry at you, you being angry at them, people not talking to each other again after a fruitful life and a development of a family with real merit, real love. Now all of a sudden at an advanced age you wind up being hoo-hoo at everybody.
Exactly.
This is not a good result.
No, not at all, and this happens all the time and people don't know where to turn. So we're really making an effort to get the word out. Families are already under a lot of stress. They're working, they're trying to support themselves.
It's about money.
Sometimes it's about money, but sometimes it's about, from the Kupuna's perspective, sometimes it's, I don't want to bother my kids. They've got their life, and I'm going to take care of myself. So sometimes it's not necessarily about money, but sometimes it's about failing to communicate and having difficult conversation. Failing to say, you know what, mom needs more help. But instead of going, Mom, this is what I'm going to do, to sit down and have that conversation.
The machinations that are possible and the combinations are huge. For example, I don't want you to spend more time with me. I want to be independent. Or, you're not spending enough time with me. I want you to come around. How come you don't bring me gifts or whatever? And from the child's point of view, why is she asking me to spend my whole life? I have a life, don't you think? Mm-hmm. Or why doesn't she let me come around? I'd like to spend more time. Or why is she favoring this child instead of me? And why can't my siblings and me, why we can't agree on anything anymore? And who's in charge here anyway? And I think I'll really get mad at everybody.
That's exactly, all those scenarios and more, such as, I'm doing all the work taking care of mom, and my brother and sister don't help at all. Or they don't appreciate me for everything I'm doing. Or I'm really tired and I need help and I don't know how to ask for it because I've always been the caregiver. And it goes on and on. And the sad thing is it ends up just what you said, families not talking. Even worse, families ending up in court in litigation. And believe me, if you end up in litigation, as you know, you're never going to talk to each other ever again.
That's true. You heard it here on Think Tech. You want to litigate, you'll never talk to your family again. There's no going back on that road.
That's
no coming back.
Absolutely.
Very sad when that happens.
And how sad for your parent if you and your siblings end up in litigation, never talking again. And really, is that what your parent wants to see at the end of their life? Probably not.
Yeah, not only that, but it's so embarrassing. I remember in Hiram Fong's family, there was litigation among the generations. He was a United States senator. Can you imagine the extraordinary embarrassment of having a famous family that had done so much good work that was so important in the community? Now they're in court together. It's really embarrassing.
And because it's all public. That's the nice thing about mediation and family conferencing. You take care of your issues amongst yourself, and it's not public. I mean, it has many values, but that's one of them.
Yeah, so here you are. You're a lawyer, and you're smart, and you're focused, and you're articulate, and you could have gone into tort law, corporate reorganizations under Section 368A1C.
Oh, that sounds really exciting.
You could go into landlord-tenant, collection law, copyright law. But you went into this. Why?
Well, because I believe in mediation and because I see it work every single day. I see people in conflict who either they don't want to go to court or they're wasting all their money going to court, and they can sit down at the table with the assistance of a mediator who helps them listen, who helps them negotiate, and who helps them be creative. So not only can you get creative solutions, but you're making that decision. And when you make a decision yourself, it's going to stick and you can move on in your life. I have rarely seen people, even if they prevail in litigation, who walk out saying, wow, that was great. I feel really good.
A resolution has to be handled with great sensitivity if it's going to stick.
Exactly.
I remember early in my practice, I'm going to raise some early scenarios for you. Japanese family, 2 brothers. They had land together. Somebody got mad. Okay, so one of the 2 brothers comes in to see me. He says, and I didn't know why at first. He says, I want you to make me a one-party deed. This is really cultural. One-party deed, and I want to assign all my interest in this land, it was a fair amount of land, to my brother. And I don't want him to have to agree. I wanted a one-party deed. I guess in those days it was more possible than it is now.
Okay.
I'm not sure it would be all that practical right now. I want to sign it. I want to notarize it. I want to record it at the Bureau of Conveyances, and I want to put it in the mail to him as recorded by certified mail. That's my way of delivering to him, and I never want to talk to that bugger again.
Wow.
He was giving him very valuable property, okay, in the way of punishing him.
Okay.
This is not a solution.
No, those aren't good solutions when you don't have a conversation. And that's the other value of mediation. Even if I think I know the answer, oftentimes people come up with completely different solutions that work for them. And I'm somebody, and I think this is human nature, I don't like being told what to do.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of mediation, because you're making the decisions, you're doing the work. It's not easy because you're there at the table. And particularly with families, it helps you talk together in a way you haven't been able to. And not everybody's comfortable negotiating. And that's what we do as mediators. We help people negotiate. We help them talk, we help them negotiate. And how powerful is that with families?
Oh, everything. Yeah. But there are undoubtedly challenges. I mean, for example, you happen to be Howley. There are some people in this world, I want to be clear about this here on Think Tech, who are not Howley.
Okay.
Whose culture is completely different.
Absolutely.
Right? So here you are entering into, a room full of cultural symbolism, a room full of history, a room full of, family stuff, baggage.
Yep.
Okay, and I mean, that's pretty scary from your point of view. How am I going to deal with these people? They're going to hate me immediately. They're not going to listen to me. How do you deal with that, actually, Tracy?
That's a really good question, Jay, and that's part of the process. And let me explain. We have two processes for this arena helping elders and their families. So one is mediation, and the other is family conferencing. So let me address your question through mediation first. Part of being an effective mediator is gaining the trust of people. And I'm not walking in saying, hey, you should do this and that. Part of it's being respectful to the people at the table, finding out a little bit about them, hearing from them, letting them vent, being able to adapt. And in mediation, we work in both private and joint sessions. So we may start with the family together, and generally, with mediation, it would be they're already in a conflict, and it won't necessarily be the whole family. It's only those family members in the conflict.
You have to pick your players.
Exactly. So that helps minimize what you talked about. And then we work with them together and also privately, and we go back and forth, and I spend enough time asking them questions about their situation, getting to know them, which helps them gain the trust of me.
Individually or a group?
Both.
So if I have a family that I want to deal with, and say there's 4 people, do I just ask them all to meet me in a conference room? Or do I talk to 1, 2, 3, 4 of them and explain, my name is Tracy, and I'm going to be organizing this meeting. I want to tell you what I have in my mind and ask you what you have in your mind and see if you'll come on board? Or do you just bring them all in, offer them coffee, and let them talk to you together in one voice?
Okay, so with mediation, we schedule it at a day and time that works for them. We bring them whoever is in the conflict. So it may not be the whole family in a mediation. So let's say there's 2 siblings, 2 adult sisters who are in a conflict about the care of mom. And one feels strongly that the other one is taking advantage of mom and not doing a good job, and she would like to be able to step in and take a more active role. But it's really between the 2 of them. So now we have just the 2 of them. So we'll start off together. I'll tell her who I am. I'm going to explain to them that my job as a mediator isn't to tell them what to do. It isn't to give them legal advice. It's not therapy. But I'm going to ask a lot of questions to understand what's important to both of them, how each of them view the situation, and what they like.
You want to have all of them ultimately hear the answers.
Right. And so initially, I'm going to ask each of them to share briefly their view of the situation. So now what happens here's the magic of mediation. I mean, you have to be a skilled mediator, but part of it is this process. Because now I've set some ground rules, so now I'm going to say, okay, why don't you share your perspective? The other person, even though they may be seething, they're required to listen as part of the process. So I listen, and then I'm going to summarize it in my own language. So while this person isn't willing to listen to her, she's going to listen to me. And she's really listening to me say what this person said. And so that's how we start developing
psychology.
trust. Well, yeah, it's a little psychology, it's a little art, and it's a little understanding the area that you're dealing in. Yeah. And then we work in private session, if they need to vent, but we really try and gain a really good understanding of why do you see the situation differently, or do you? What's important to you? How did it get to this point? And then start looking at, okay, how do we help you move beyond it? What's going to solve it for each of you? So it may take several hours. It may take more than one session. And that's the other beauty of it is we're going to work with you as long as you need to and as long as you're motivated enough to keep moving towards an agreement. And I'll explain to people, I can't fix the past. I wish I was that powerful. But we can focus on what can we do to make the future better.
And that's what we do here at Think Tech. But sometimes we have a moment where we relax for a moment and we take a short break I'm going to take a short break. I'm going to come back. I'm going to ask you this really cliffhanger question.
Okay.
Okay, what happens when somebody in the room has got Alzheimer's?
That is a cliffhanger.
You mentioned it, so I want to follow up.
Aloha, my name is Kaui Lucas. I am the host of Hawaii is My Mainland, here every Friday on Think Tech Hawaii at 3 p.m. I invite people who are doing interesting and inspiring things in our community to help us keep it local and keep it real. Tune in any Friday, 3 p.m. and also available on our YouTube channel and my blog, kauilucas.com. Hawaii is my mainland. Aloha.
Hi, I'm Stan the Energy Man, Stan Osterman, and I'm here to tell you about my show on Friday, every Friday, on my lunch hour, 12 o'clock till 1 o'clock here on Think Tech Hawaii. We talk about everything energy and anything you ever wanted to know about energy. So we're full of energy, and we'll see you here every Friday at noon to 1. Aloha.
We're back. We're back. We're having a very, very active, a break. And in our break, we were discussing all these issues. We'll never have time to finish this show.
We have to talk more.
So one thing I mentioned, the cliffhanger is, so there you are in the room, and you're trying to, get them all on the same page, and you find, in your own subjective way, maybe it could be more, maybe it's a diagnostic way too, that one of them is not really there, especially the Kupuna. Not really there. What do you do as a mediator, eh?
Hey, that's a great question. And sometimes families will say, well, mom's got Alzheimer's, so she can't participate. But remember, there's different phases and stages of Alzheimer's. So because someone's diagnosed doesn't mean they're not capable of speaking on behalf of themselves, much less making decisions still. So one of the first things when we're setting up a mediation or a family conference, which I still need to describe, we ask the question, what's the current medical condition? If there is a diagnosis, then we know we need to be aware, but maybe there isn't a diagnosis. Yeah, mom seems to have memory issues. Yeah. So now we're in the mediation process. And so maybe there seems to be some memory issues, and there hasn't been an official diagnosis. Part of the agreement in that mediation may be taking mom or mom agreeing to go get a current medical evaluation to determine what are her needs. She hears it from a physician as opposed to the kids saying, Mom, I think your memory's really bad and you should be doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, that's a lot easier on
right?
mom. She doesn't,
Exactly. So that's how we would deal with that. Now let me give you another scenario, and we've had all these scenarios. So let's say the kids say, Mom's got Alzheimer's. Well, could she physically participate? And we'll also accommodate and have the mediations or family conferences off-site. So one great example, so we met, I said, okay, we'll meet, when's her best time? Well, late in the afternoon, she's most alert. I said, great, we'll set it up then. We'll set it up for just an hour and see how much she can participate. We'll schedule another meeting with just the two of you the next day to follow up. So in the mediation, Mom wasn't saying a lot. She didn't look like she was very alert. The kids were going back and forth, and they were having a disagreement about where they wanted to move Mom. So finally, looked at Mom and said, Mrs. So-and-so, what's important to you? And this is a woman who looked completely not alert, and she looked up and she said, I just want my kids to stop fighting. That was powerful.
That was really powerful,
right?
Yeah.
So we met, so she couldn't participate in any of the other decision making, but that statement helped guide the rest of the mediation between the two siblings.
Yeah,
so
very important.
So we encourage them to participate as much as they can.
Yeah.
Now, in a family conference, we do bring the whole family together. So that goes back to those unique dynamics that you described, and sometimes we all know family dynamics can be just a little crazy because we're all different and family members are different. So in a family conference, we actually talk to each family member before we bring them together. We learn about what their concerns are, the current medical condition. Ideally, we have a medical release so we can hear from the physician what the current needs are, what the future needs are. We create an agenda based on the concerns raised by the family. We bring them together. We bring in food.
Food is so
food is important.
Don't you agree? Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. You got to set a stage. We ask, is there a traditional way you start your family meetings? And if there is a traditional way, we allow them to start that way. Then before we hit the issues, the first question we ask is, what makes your family unique? And I want each person to give me an adjective that describes your family. And we just go around and they look at us like we're a little strange, but they'll start saying, well, you know, we don't see each other much, but when we need each other, we're there for each other. Whatever it is. So we go around. Then the next question we ask, if mom or dad, the person who the family conference is about, is there, we'll ask them, what's important to you? And what's important to you about your kids? So we get, well, I don't want to be in a home, or I don't want my kids to fight, or I love my kids and I just don't want to be a burden to them. All these kind of things. And we capture all of that on a flip chart. If mom or dad can't be there, we'll go around and say, what do you think's important to mom or dad, whoever it's about? And so they talk, oh yeah, mom's really independent, she's really feisty, she's a fighter, she wants to fight to the end. Those are important. So then we capture that, then we go to the issues. And it generally follows the same pattern. It's about, is mom able to live by herself anymore? Do we need to bring caregivers in? Mom wants to stay in her house, so we do have moving her out. Medication management, eating, socialization, safety. Do there need to be repairs to the home to make it safe? And then end of life issues. So we help them strategically walk through and talk through each of those issues based on the family's uniqueness, which goes to your point about different cultures, and it goes to what's important to the kupuna. And then they reach agreements. We help them capture the agreements. We might suggest resources. For example, if they say, oh yeah, you know, we are too busy to come in and spend more time, but clearly mom needs more assistance. We need to look into maybe caregivers coming in or somebody coming in, but we don't know where to go. So we might make suggestions about different resources they could look into. Who's going to do that? When are you going to do that? We capture all of that. Then at the end, we will put that into a whole plan and send it to each family member the following week, so that then they have a plan to follow up on.
Is that a fait accompli, or is that subject to further discussion?
It's subject to further discussion. So with some families, and let's go back to the issue of Alzheimer's or dementia, if mom is in an early stage, you know that she's going to go through additional stages and it's going to get harder. So now they've got a plan for now. They may make an agreement to meet again on their own to have a discussion about what next. Or if it's difficult, they can come back to us and we can help facilitate another agreement. So some, once they go through it, they say, great, we're going to agree, we're going to do this again in 6 months and we're going to do it on our own. Others will call us and say, we need to come back.
You know, it strikes me, I'm just guessing here, but that you have different intensities of this kind of controversy.
Absolutely.
Sometimes they'll be, you know, all excited and stamping their feet. Sometimes it'll be very subtle.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it won't be a controversy as much as we don't know what to do.
Right.
Can you give us options and point us a little bit in a direction? And it strikes me that if you have the experience you have and you've been through, dealing with contention part, that it's duck soup for the family to come in and say, Tracy, can you just give us a little guidance on this? We're not arguing about it. We just need to hear it from someone. Does that happen?
We're not really there to give them guidance. We still go through the process because oftentimes what we find is the family hasn't talked to each other. Usually they've had side conversations, but it hasn't been a whole family talking. And the other important thing too nowadays is sometimes some of the siblings are living off island. They might live on the mainland or neighbor island.
Yeah.
If they can come fly in, great. Otherwise we bring them in via Skype and they're
Do you
participating.
really?
Absolutely.
We do that too, but it's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we have our big screen TV
Oh,
in
good for
there,
you.
absolutely.
Very high tech. See, we
Very.
have technology everywhere.
We've been working to incorporate technology
But
into
you know,
our
it strikes
process.
me too that, your services would not have been as critical back, say, in the 50s or the 60s.
You're right.
With local people anyway, because they would have spent time at the dinner table.
Yep.
They would have had that meal without the need for anyone else to be there. They would have come home every day from school or work and shared. They would have been living in the same house, and likely they would not be living in Cincinnati and not concerned. So as we go down to the 21st century, what you're doing seems to me is more important, especially in a family with a lot of members.
No, exactly. And even we tried to develop a similar program probably about 18 years ago, and it didn't, people said, yeah, that's a nice program, but it didn't really go anywhere. But now you're right. Times are different. People are busy. People are all over the place. Families don't talk. They don't want to be a burden. People are living longer. Alzheimer and dementia are a huge issue, which nobody has any idea how to deal with and how to manage. And yet, our state has developed a lot of resources, but you don't access resources until you're in a crisis and need it. So bringing
What
all
kind of
these
resources do you mean?
Oh, there's, like even just the Alzheimer's Association
Yeah.
has support groups, has written information, has booklets and things that can assist families. They can even do a one-on-one. There's a lot of independent caregivers.
You bring them in.
Bring them
You
in.
reach out, you bring them in, and there are solutions or possible.
Yeah, so we get their information and collect it. So when you say they come in to ask for guidance, it's, in some ways that's what they're thinking, but we still help them engage in the conversation. So we have a team of 2 facilitators who go through the process that I described, but prior to coming in, because we talk to each family member first, and we have a sense of what some of the issues might be, we try and gather some of what resources they may need, and then we suggest them. I mean, again, it's up to them to say, oh yeah, I'm interested in following up on that. We certainly don't tell them anything that they have to do.
Now, suppose you mentioned in the break, which really caught my attention, is sometimes they don't understand what a will is, or a power of attorney, or a healthcare directive, and if you mix that with maybe they're a little scrambled too. What can you do? This is dangerous territory.
Very
isn't it?
Dangerous territory.
How do you handle that?
And again, that's why it's really valuable having the whole family there to ask questions. Is there a will in place? Who's making the decisions? Is mom still making the decisions for herself? And they're concerned that she's not making good decisions. Who has the power to make healthcare decisions? Who has the power to make financial decisions? And if they're going, I don't know, have you talked to an attorney? Do you have a family attorney? If there's no healthcare directive, they've never talked about mom's wishes, have they talked to their physician about that? So again, we're not going to tell them what the difference between a will and a healthcare directive and a pulse.
Because you're not going to act as attorney.
No.
And you're not going to make a decision as to whether this person is competent or not either.
No, we can't do
You're
that.
playing it as a mediation with just human beings in front of you and let it fall where it does. Yeah.
Right, but we certainly will refer them if we're getting the sense, and that's why you, as facilitators and mediators, we have to understand. And so when we are getting the sense that they don't understand these terms, they don't have the information. So, for example, in one situation, the mother could no longer make decisions for herself. The kids agreed that one sibling could do that, and yet he didn't have any legal power to be signing checks for her or doing anything else. So they had to make an agreement that they would go with mom to the attorney to talk to the attorney, since mom still had the capacity to agree. She just didn't have the capacity to do these things for herself on her own. So we can ask them questions and talk about what resources and where they might go to put things in place to help them. So sometimes it's about them going out and gathering information to come back to make these decisions together.
You remind me of a case I once had involving a language problem. You know, the Kupuna spoke Korean, and no English at all.
Okay.
And one of her many children spoke Korean. The others did not. That particular child was very close to the old lady, and he was very influential in the making of the will. This
Yes.
became a real problem when the other children found out later what he had advised her, which was to give it all to him.
I can imagine.
So when we come back, I'd like to ask you how you deal with language issues.
Okay.
This is going to be interesting. Boy, am I learning a lot today from Tracy Wiltgen. And she does the Mediation Center of the Pacific, and she helps Kupuna mediate. A great thing to do in life. We'll be right back.
Aloha, you can join the Hawaii Farmer Series every Thursday from 4 to 5 on Think Tech.
And I'm your co-host, Matthew Johnson, here with Justine Espiritu.
And we are so thankful to have this show to use as a forum to get to know all the movers and shakers in agriculture in Hawaii and hear kind of their background and history, as well as
Their perspective on what they're doing and also the future for agriculture in Hawaii.
So join us every Thursday. You can tweet in your own comments and suggestions and be a part of the conversation at Think Tech High. And we hope to see you every single Thursday.
Aloha! Hello, my name is Patrick Bratton. I'm host at Global Connections here at Think Tech Hawaii. We broadcast live every Thursday at 1 p.m. We bring Hawaii to the world and the world to Hawaii, talking about international events and various things of interest to the audience. Please join me. I look forward to talking with you and having you get to meet some of my guests. Aloha.
Okay, we're back. We're live for the final segment with Tracy Wiltgen. She's a lawyer. She's executive director of the Mediation Center Pacific, and she does Kupuna in controversy here on Aging with Grace. So I mentioned my cliffhanger before the break was what happens when you have language issues, or let me add to that, based on our conversation during the break, confidence issues, where the Kupuna is closer to, has greater confidence in one sibling and not the others, and then that sibling gets to control the money, and it's made for litigation of the nastiest sort. What happens? What do you do?
Well, let's focus on the language issue first.
Okay.
To me, that's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So certainly if somebody speaks a different language, we hire an interpreter and bring the interpreter in to work with them.
Right.
And we have had family conferences with interpreters. It's almost what you described, where one sibling could speak the language and the other siblings didn't, but we brought an interpreter for mom. And the nice thing too is it helped mom feel more comfortable. She was very quiet, but as the interpreter helped her understand the process, she then later was able to voice her concerns, her feelings, her desires. So that's how we deal with the language issue. Now, we're going to family dynamics, which are challenging in themselves, but then we're also going to money issues. Those are really tough issues. So what we tell people is, if they're entrenched in a conflict, particularly if it's about money, a family conference, which is really about everybody putting aside their differences to talk about how we're going to work together to support mom or dad. So if it's, I think that he's got all the money or he's wasting mom's money or,
Classic.
then
Classic.
that's going to be a mediation. So we're going to take out all the other family members and just focus on the key ones to talk about why they feel that way, what information they have. Generally, when you're fighting at that point, they may already be represented by attorneys. So we really try and get down to who has the power. Did mom give them the power of attorney to make those decisions? So again, now we're getting into some more legal questions as opposed to the family values. So we need to find out, maybe the power of attorney was legitimately given to this son to do this. Even though the other son isn't happy, he may not have a lot of, can he negotiate something? Are there other siblings involved? Where are they coming from with the situation? So it's going to take a lot more working through that mediation process to see where they're at, what documents are in place, and is there any possibility to negotiate agreement?
So the other two facilitators you mentioned, you talk to them, yeah? They bring you the special wrinkles of these meetings and
Oh,
so
absolutely.
forth. And you guys consult and confer about how to handle. It strikes me that on the one hand, you have to be dedicated to the human condition and to being nice to people. On the other hand, you have to have certain skills, and you have to have a thick skin.
Yep.
Not to let anybody manipulate you in this deal.
Absolutely.
Because facilitators are always, at risk of being manipulated.
Absolutely, and we have to remain impartial, so it can't be, gee, I feel so sorry for this mom, or I just think this is a horrible brother and sister.
Yeah,
You
can't
can't
do that.
you can't do that. You have to treat everybody equally. You have to make sure you're giving them the equal opportunity to share their views, bring their information forward, help them negotiate things that you may think, that's a really dumb idea, but you're going to still share it with the other person because, as I said earlier, you never know what people are going to come up with and reach agreements on.
The other thing that drives off that is that just looking at the human condition again, sometimes somebody in the crowd is going to be more psychopathic than the others.
Well, true.
And, he's going to lie to you. He's going to lie to them. He is not going to settle anything. He is going to, put the whole process down.
Yep.
And make it impossible. He wants to retain control maybe of the money or just of the situation. What do you do with him? Beat him about the head and shoulders.
Well, I mean, after you keep working through the process and use all your mediator tools, if you really have somebody that they don't want to make the process productive, then you close it down because their next step, they can go to litigation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing about mediation is it doesn't prevent you from going those next steps. And I think there's always value, even if you don't reach that agreement, which would be the ideal. They communicate, they hear each other in a way they haven't been, or maybe they realize, okay, this isn't going to go anywhere, but I still really believe that the judge is going to, rule in my favor on this issue, so I'll dump this issue, but I'm going to focus on this. It might help them prepare more effectively, even though that's
who
not our
knows what
purpose.
contribution you might make, even
Sure.
without realizing it. The other thing is, I read recently that there is an increase. This really surprised me, but it's relevant to our show, Aging with Grace. That longer life expectancies and greater opportunity to live life as you hope to be able to live it. There's more divorces in later years. Even people who are way too old to be doing that, they do it.
That's right.
And it's really interesting. And I'm wondering if you have a kind of mediated result of disputes between spouses who may be married for inordinately long periods of time. And what do you do then? What's the style on that one?
Absolutely. Well, we do a lot of divorce mediation. So, the first thing we ask, we check with them is, do you really want to get divorced? And to find out a little bit, we don't want to help people mediate their divorce if they really don't want to get divorced. And so once we get through that, then it's okay. It's just going to be a little more complex because they've been together for so long. And, are there enough financial resources to support both people? And what about medical coverage? And so there's a lot to talk about.
What about emotional dependency?
Oh, exactly.
Kupuna get very dependent on the spouse, and they may not realize how dangerous it is, life and limb,
Right.
To separate from somebody who they've been with for a long time.
Exactly. So, but we do have those kinds of cases. We had one instance where, after talking to both people and going through, it appeared that maybe, the husband had changed a lot. So she's like, I'm done. I'm too old for this.
Yeah, he's got this 17-year-old girlfriend.
No, that wasn't the case. So it turned out that what they did is they went and got medical examinations, and she found out he was in the early stages of dementia. So it wasn't that he had become a bad husband, it was that he was sick.
Yeah.
And knowing that, then she looked at the situation differently.
Differently.
It was, okay, now I need to get a medical help, and it isn't about getting divorced, it's about supporting this person that I've loved for this many years. They don't always end that happily, but at least that was one marriage
that
of
you were able to
longevity that
save.
didn't end.
You were able
Right,
to save.
right.
That's gratifying.
Yeah.
But, one of my closing questions here, I have others too,
Okay.
is, sometimes it doesn't work. So, mediation is no guarantee.
That's true.
Sometimes it doesn't work. I mean, what kinds of things happen to make, your best attempts, fail?
What makes them fail?
Yeah.
People who really don't want to reach an agreement, people who are too entrenched or who believe so strongly that they're right and they're going to prevail in court. And so sometimes it's better for them to go to court. That's why we have our
Find out the reality.
Right, they can always come back. That's the beauty of mediation. Just because you started and you stopped and you went to court doesn't mean you can't come back. And sometimes people do.
And you welcome them back.
Absolutely.
That's because you're kind.
I believe in mediation and family conferencing. I
You
see
have
it
to,
work.
yeah. Okay, my final question, and this is, kind of interesting. I want to place this in a landscape.
Okay.
So my guess is that I know from our discussion, you've been doing more of it than less. Maybe that's because the word got out that you're really good at it. Maybe it's because more Kupuna more families need help in the 21st century. But I want to know where it's going. Do you have more competition out there? Are there other family mediators who do this in Hawaii? And how does this affect, say, the quality of life? To generalize it to a ridiculous extreme, but how does this affect the quality of life of our community of Kupuna?
Wow. Those are all great questions. So let me answer the first one. First, the Mediation Center is a 501c3 nonprofit. So our mission is to provide affordable and accessible services. While we don't turn anybody away, we're the only option for people in the lower income. So there are private mediators out there who people with financial resources can access. So sometimes people with money will access a private mediator for family mediation, which is a good thing. There's a lot of conflict.
Are you telling me that if I qualify and I'm in the lower income bracket, it's free? You telling me that?
It's so for our mediations, we charge on a sliding fee scale. So if you're in a very low income bracket, there's no charge. And it's a flat fee for a 3-hour session. So even in the high income bracket, it's very affordable. We're not charging a large hourly fee, and we serve everybody. With our family conferencing program, we are very fortunate to have funding from the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Foundation.
How nice of them.
Very nice. So individuals in the low income bracket, there's no fee at all. We also have a memorandum of understanding with Kaiser Permanente, who refers their clients to us, their patients to us. So if you're a Kaiser Permanente patient, we don't charge a fee. And let's say you have financial resources and you don't fit in any of those categories. We charge a flat $250 family fee. And why is it for this 3-hour session for all the prep work that we do? Because we want to make this available to families. We want to encourage them to use it. It's still, because families are in such overwhelm caring for an elder family member and all the conflict and things that we talked about, accessing something like this is still a little foreign to them. The ones we have done, we've had success with. People felt that it was helpful. It helped move them forward. It helped put them together with resources. There is so much need out there. We have calls every day, but helping people understand the value of just a deterrent. Later on, we'll worry about that.
But you want some money sometimes to get their attention.
Absolutely.
To make them feel that they're invested in the process.
Absolutely. So, we have, as I said, we have funding from Harry and Jeanette Weinberg. We write grants and we have large fundraisers to raise money to
From the
support
public.
programs. Absolutely.
Good for you.
So, this is a huge community need. And does it make a difference? Absolutely. When families don't talk, they get into conflict. When you don't discuss end-of-life issues and you end up fighting when your mom's going to pass away about, well, should we provide more medical attention or not? And what does this all mean? It tears families apart. And that hurts our community.
Yeah.
And, even the issue that you raised about older couples getting divorced, It could mean somebody being homeless and adding to our homeless population. And I'm not exaggerating because we have actually seen that situation.
Sure.
So what we offer, it seems like a simple process, but it's something that, as you said, back in the 60s, people had dinner together and they had more time to have conversations and have these stronger family units. And nowadays people are busy. It's not that they don't love each other. It's just that they don't take the time to come together, and we can help them do that.
Yeah, and in the larger sense, I always say that you measure the moral quality of a community by how they treat their disadvantaged.
Absolutely.
But I would say that Kupuna are by definition disadvantaged. And so I would amend my comment to say you measure the moral quality of a community by how the quality of life of the Kupuna, and you are participating, you are making that better. Thank you so much, Tracy. Wiltgen.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jay.
Wonderful to talk to you.
I appreciate talking with you.
Aloha.